What's going on, guys? Welcome to my home. I think it's time to give you an updated tour of my home mix rig slash office that I use here. It's been a while since we moved in, but I haven't updated the old studio tour video. So I'm going to show you my new mixing rig. I'm going to show you thousands of dollars of gear that's sitting in my closet and explain why, and show you what I chose for acoustic treatment and all that good stuff. So let's dive in, let's head up. So as you'll see, it's nothing super fancy here. We're just using one of the extra bedrooms in our house as my office slash mix rig. So let's check it out.
I'm not in love with the things that I've done. I found a romance in the places I wish I was from.
Let's start off with the mix rig I'm using now. So I've got a 2017 iMac here behind me. It's the 27-inch version, 16 gigs of RAM. It's not anything special. It's not supercharged, or I haven't done any modifications to it or anything like that. It's just kind of the 2017 iMac, kind of off the shelf with, you know, the 16 gigs of RAM, solid state drive, and then I've got another external hard drive that I use for all the actual audio. And it's running great with Pro Tools 12 native on there. Everything up to date, newest OS and all that stuff for anyone who's interested. And as an interface, I'm using this Apogee Duet. Now, obviously, if I was tracking bands and really tracking anything in here, I would want a more expanded interface, something capable of a lot more. This just has 2 ins, 2 outs, but I trust Apogee. It's very clear and clean, and I'm just mixing in the box here, so I don't need lots of outputs or inputs. I just need the 2 outs for my monitors here, and that's it. And the inputs I use for just recording my voice for a podcast or the videos that I make for you guys here. And that's it. And if I wanted to, I could rig it up so that I could run something out to my Distressor or something. But for the most part, I'm just in the box. So all I need is a really simple but high quality interface with 2 clean outputs. So I've also got this Sm7 mic here. This is one of the only mics. I think I also kept a couple 57s from my old studio, but this is one of the microphones I kept, and it's worked great for making the podcast and mix videos that I do for you guys here. And I have this handy little boom stand here that I can just tuck away when I don't need it, and then pull it out when I have an idea to record something, which is really nice, and less setup, less prep work, which I always love. Here is another essential piece of my rig here, the Kensington Trackball. I use this pretty much only when I'm working in Pro Tools, and I use this Apple trackpad for everything else here. And then of course the keyboard, it has to have the numpad. Cannot work without that. A lot of the shortcuts I use are over there, and it's just automatic for me, so I gotta have that now. Something new that I've just added in the last couple months is this Avid Artist mix control surface. So for those of you who are not familiar with this, there's no audio going through this. This just connects to the computer with Ethernet, and it's just basically better than a mouse. So the faders just control what's happening in Pro Tools on the screen, and it's just, for me, I've always preferred having the actual physical faders there. I find it really slow just mixing with a mouse, and I like, especially in the early stages of the mix, I like to just be able to jump around really quick, you know, hit the buttons like this, find the tracks that I want, grab multiple faders at the same time, and just do my balance in terms of the levels and panning and everything very quickly with my hands that way. I also find you make just better, bolder mix decisions when you're doing that, because when you're with your mouse, you're really focusing on the numbers on the screen, right? And you might only go up or down by a dB or 2. But if you've got a fader, you're just moving it like, oh, that sounds good. Oh, that's too much. You know, you're just really using your ears a lot more. So that's why I love having the control surface. I was working with just a single fader with the Presonus fader port, which I recommend for tight setups. But here I've got a little bit more room, and even that was kind of cramping my preferred workflow a little bit. So I decided to spring and get this Avid Artist mix, and I'm pretty happy with it so far. Okay, let's talk monitors. So you can see behind me, I've just got a pair of NS-10s. I don't have any other monitors. I've got some in the closet that I'll show you in a minute. But these are the monitors that I've been mixing on for a few years now, and honestly, once I switched to these and got used to them and forced myself to really only mix on NS-10s, my mixes translate way better. And I think the main reason is because there's such little sub-low-end information that it forces you to focus on the meat of the mix, which is the mid-range and even the low mids, like getting a lot of power there, instead of like just relying so much on the sub frequencies. I think if you have speakers that go down, or if you have a sub and they go down pretty low, I mean, on the one hand, it's good because you can hear that stuff better, but on the other hand, you kind of can get obsessed with that, spend a lot of time working on that small group of frequencies down low, and you can kind of get the illusion that your mix is very powerful in the low end, when in reality you might take it into a car or somewhere else or on earbuds and it sounds really thin and not powerful at all, because you actually have no power in the low mids or the mid range, and all of it's in the sub, which doesn't always translate very well. So I think that's one of the keys to why these speakers translate so well, is because you're not getting distracted by all that sub low end. You end up focusing a lot more on just getting the balance right and the EQ right in the mid range, which is key for mixed translation. And when I do need to check the low end, I just use these headphones here. These are Audio Technica ATH-M50s. I had to read the label because I didn't even know what they are. I've had these for years and years. I don't think it's super important what headphones you use, and I don't mix on these. I think you can mix on headphones if that's what you're used to, but I'm not. I just check on the headphones just for the sub low end, and it's literally like, it sounds kind of crazy, but maybe I'll spend a whole day mixing. I might spend a total of 5 to 10 minutes on those headphones checking the low end. And that's just from years of experience on the NS-10s, and I kind of know the ballpark I'm going for, and then I just double check it on there, use some reference tracks just to make sure the sub low end energy is, in the right ballpark and is consistent and nothing's like super overpowering there. So just throw in the headphones, few minutes, tweak it if I need to. Again, only listening to the low end. I'm not making other mix decisions on the headphones. And then I take them off and then I keep mixing. And again, the mixes translate really well with that approach. So let's look at the rack gear that's mounted behind me here in the desk. Super minimal, not really much going on. This patch bay is just left over from my old project studio. It's got all the inputs labeled like I used to have for compressors, and I had 16 ins on the Pro Tools rig and stuff. So it's got all that. I just keep it in case I want to add more outboard gear down the road. It's just a nice thing to have for flexibility, so that's why it's in there, but not using it right now. Now below that is the Presonus central station, and again, I've kept that from my old studio rig. I used to have it because it had the remote that came out, so I could have this monitor controller in my rack off to the side and then have the remote so I could hit mono, I could control the volume. This is really great if you have a tracking studio. You can have multiple pairs of monitors with it. You can also send a separate mix to the headphones and then a different one to the main outputs and stuff like that. And you can have 3 pairs of monitors, which is really good. Again, I'm only using 1 pair right now, so this piece is not an essential thing to have in my rig here, but I am still using it, and it's pretty much just for one main reason, and that's just convenience. It has a nice mono button and a dim button that I can just hit, and a mute, and I just have it right there, right beside me, and I really like that. I just like having the mono button. I don't want to fiddle around on the screen. Same with the volume. I just like grabbing the volume knob to adjust it and not trying to adjust my computer's output and everything like that. So not essential right now, but just a good piece for any project studio owners out there. I wanted to keep it. If I ever decide to add some more monitors to the setup here, I could easily just plug them in the central station without having to come up with a new routing or anything like that. Below that is the only piece of outboard gear I kept from my project studio, which is the Distressor. I just could not bear to get rid of it because whenever I'm tracking vocals, if the studio does not have one, I bring this guy. So I have done that a couple times for studios that don't have Distressors. I don't want to be tracking vocals without that, and I definitely foresee myself tracking vocals again in the future, and I have since I closed down my other studio. So I want to have this just in case. It's also useful for mixing sometimes. I will say it's very rare, but if I get a track to mix where the vocals were not compressed at all on the way in and they're very dynamic, I like to run it through this thing first. I just think it really levels it off nicely. So I'll run it through that and then actually record it back in, and then I'll start working in the box the way I normally would. So that starts me off at a point where it's almost as if I had recorded the vocals with the Distressor on the way in. That's all I've got to show you for my mixing rig now. As you can see, I keep it really simple now, guys. Again, I'm just mixing in the box. I don't need a massive setup here. But I'm gonna show you the gear that I used to have, and it's sitting in my closet here, so let's check this out. So amongst all the other junk in this closet here is my old studio rig. So this is, I think, a 2010 or 11 Mac Pro. It's got HD2 Excel cards in there, so the core card and the Excel card. And here is my 192 IO. interface. I really loved this rig, and I would be happy to track on it even to this day. With the HD cards and this Mac Pro, it's still really fast. You can fit 4 hard drives in there. I love this rig, but honestly, for tracking, it's just not realistic. Or sorry, for mixing in the box that I need right now, it's just not realistic to have all this stuff at home, or it's not necessary. So that's why I went to a much simpler rig. But one of the other main reasons is that I can't update this thing. Because of the way Avid chose to do some things. This has Pro Tools 8 HD installed on it, and with a lot of the plugins that I bought over the years, they're TDM, which means the processing was done on the cards, and then they switched everything over to the new version as a Pro Tools 10, I think, with AAX, and then all the plugins started going that way. And then there was issues with, I couldn't update certain plugins because then I had to update the OS, but if I updated the OS, I couldn't use Pro Tools 8 anymore, so I was just stuck on Pro Tools 8 for a long, long time. And it worked fine, like it wasn't limiting me at all, but it just got to the point where, I couldn't do my other work online and stuff on this computer because the OS was so out of date and I couldn't sync everything, so almost just as kind of a need to just keep everything working very conveniently and syncing smoothly. I was like, you know what, I'm just going to move to a native setup. I don't need the HD system anymore. If I was tracking, I would really prefer an HD system just to keep latency low and have ultimate flexibility and stability. But now I just mix natively in the box. But this thing is in the closet. I haven't gotten rid of it for a couple reasons. I mean, when I got this whole rig, this is all together probably worth like 10 grand. That was like 10 years ago. But at this point, I don't think it would sell for very much to make it worth it. And also, I've got a lot of old sessions on here of albums that I've mixed for labels and then bigger bands. And I use something called Heat and some TDM plugins on those mixes that I literally cannot recall on the new rig because it only works with the old TDM system. So that's why I've kept this, just in case someone calls me up and they need me to recall and maybe do an instrumental mix or get some tracks or bounce out of one of those old albums that has some of those plugins and processing that I can't duplicate on here. So that's why I've kept this, just in case I need to fire it up, and I could do that fairly easily if I needed to, and that's why it's in the closet here. So it's kind of sad, but you know what? Technology changes. Unfortunately, we got to try and keep up and try not to waste too much money doing it, but the time came, I had to put it in the closet and get the new rig. Some other pieces of guitar gear that I've kept are some pedals here. This is the Electro Harmonix Micropog. Really cool effect. Just look it up or try one out. It's I actually picked this up from watching the Jonas Brothers album Get Tracked. The producer John Fields used this a lot for guitar leads. You can mix in the low octave and the high octave with the original signal, and just I think it's really cool. So I like that, especially if I'm tracking more pop rock stuff. I kept my Maxon Tube Screamer pedal. If you're in the tracking course, you've seen this. This is definitely a must-have for guitar tracking for me. And my Sansamp bass driver DI, again, essential for tracking bass for me. Keep that. You can even use this in the mix to run a raw bass DI track out of the DAW through this and back in, which I've done before. So that's a keeper. And then the last piece I got here is this Little Labs RedEye, which is a DI box and a reamp box. So if I am running guitar stuff back out, either to reamp or just to put a bass track through that pedal, you need to use the DI box here, or sorry, the reamp box here, and just a little simple button. It changes into a clean passive DI, which I used on all my records as well for DI purposes for the guitar. So good piece here with the double function, definitely recommended. What else is up behind me? I got these Yamaha HS80s, which were the monitors I mixed on exclusively for a number of years, and always had that struggle of getting the mixes to translate. And these are pretty inexpensive monitors. They're decent. I wouldn't recommend against them necessarily, but I still think you got to have something small like the NS-10s that don't have that extended low end. I mean, these still went down, I think, to 40 or, yeah, about 40 hertz, I think, and provided a lot of that low end sub energy. And I just found myself, I'd spend half the day just worrying about those sub frequencies and not having a mix that translates. And switching to the NS-10s really helped that. And I used to use those. I had both the NS-10s and those side by side, and I would switch to those to check the low end. And then now I just use the headphones for the low end, and that's why those are in the closet too. And I still like them, and that's why I haven't sold them or gotten rid of them, because I could see, you know, if I in the future, you know, maybe in a newer house, or I don't know, something. If I decided to set up a studio somewhere, if I was tracking, I would want those because I liked using those during tracking because you can turn them up louder, you can get more energy in the room. So I'm hanging on to them for now. You never know. So that's what's in my closet, guys. Thousands of dollars worth of gear there. Maybe worth less now, but definitely over the years costs, 10 grand plus. So it's hard to let go of that stuff. And there's definitely, when you have the more expensive gear, there's like that pride, right? Of like, I'm using a Pro Tools HD system or whatever, and moving to a more streamlined setup is like maybe not as brag-worthy, but in the end, it's all about the quality of the mixes that come out, right? And I'm very happy with how my mixes are translating in this room, and that's a lot due to just sticking with what works for me, the NS-10s in the box with some minimal room treatment, which I'm going to show you now. So right behind my mix position here, I've got a couple 4-inch deep bass traps, and that's the rigid fiberglass Owens Corning 703 inside there, just in a nice frame covered with fabric. So you can build this kind of thing yourself if you want to get the 703 fiberglass panels, the 24 by 48 inch ones here, and you can cover them yourself with fabric. It's a lot of work. I've done it, but there's companies that sell them pre-made, which is what I did for this room. And the company I use for these is called Acoustic Panels Canada. So if you're in Canada or Ontario where I am, really good choice, worth the cost. They look really nice and they hang up really easily. In the corner, I've got a 12 by 48 inch, just for space. I mean, ideally I would have, again, the 2 foot wide one in the corner there, but in a small room here, I thought it was better to go for the smaller one, and it straddles the corner. It's still 4 inches deep, and having that little air gap by straddling the corner helps tame the low end frequencies as well. I'm no acoustician, so I'm sure I'm going to get some comments here about why my treatment isn't ideal or whatever, but look, I'm working in a home bedroom here and I'm just making it the best I can, and I'm just trying to just tame the issue so it's not super extreme and super inaccurate. And then I just learn the room and I just mix, It takes a little while. I'd say it actually took me maybe a month or more to really get used to this room, and I was kind of worried that stuff wasn't really sounding the way I expected, but after enough time eventually just clicked and I was like, oh yeah, things are sounding the way I expect now. And it's not because I changed a bunch of stuff, it's just because I put in the time to actually learn my room and get used to how my speakers and my rig sounds in this space. So also around the room, I've got on the side walls, I've got 2-inch panels. So these are more for high frequencies, to keep the high frequencies from bouncing around. So there's one on this wall between the windows. If I spin around here, there's 3 on that big wall there. And then back in the corner, I've got another bass trap straddling the corner there. And then a bookshelf here in the other corner, which may or may not help with the sound. I don't know. Hopefully it does. I'm going to go with that. I love the vibes. I love reading. I read every morning, try to read multiple books every month, just always trying to just grow and just learn more, invest in myself and my own knowledge, whether it's, something to do with some other aspect of life or finances or online business. I like to just come back here, sit down, and some people, have a crazy man cave with lots of TVs and tech and stuff. For me, this is perfect vibe. I've got my mix rig over here, and then back in the corner, I've got a comfortable chair with a bookshelf of my favorite books. Awesome. You guys might be wondering about the actual desk itself. This is also someone locally, I believe in the Toronto area, who builds these things. It's called MGear Designs. You can check out the website. I'm not sure if they ship internationally, but again, if you're in the Ontario area, definitely check out the site, MGear Designs. By the way, everything I'm mentioning here, they don't know I'm making this video. I'm not getting any kickbacks on this. This is just the stuff that I've chosen and used. So this desk was the one I chose. It's got a really nice spot for my monitor there, fit the 27-inch screen, which I needed, and then it's got the 2 small rack bays there. You can get ones that have more rack space and all that, and then it's got the keyboard tray, which is good for me. So MGear Designs, really cool custom studio desk here. He did a great job on that. So I think we're coming to the end of the tour, guys. The only thing that I haven't touched on in terms of gear here is this camera. So this is the camera I use to film a lot of the videos. I'm just using my iPhone now so I can move it around, but this is a Canon 80D, really good video quality for any of you guys who are interested in doing YouTube or video lessons or whatever, vlogging. Really good quality camera. I use this Rode lavalier wireless setup here for the audio. I've been really happy with that camera, but you know, I started out doing this with just my iPhone like I'm doing right now, which most people have incredible cameras in their pocket now. So I'd say if you're just getting started making videos and putting them online, just use your phone. It's fine. The content is what really matters. Alright guys, thanks for visiting my home office / mix rig. If there's anything that you have questions about that you saw here, definitely drop a comment below. I will follow along and try to answer any questions you've got about anything here. And if you're not subscribed to this channel, please do that. I'm posting videos every week now, at least, and going to be having a lot of awesome tutorials coming up, which I'm going to get to work on right now. New recording and mixing tutorials, and most importantly, the email list is the best place to keep in touch with everything I'm working on. That's where I give invitations to join my higher level courses, and also just constantly sending out free tips and advice for recording and mixing heavy music. So that's at hardcoremusicstudio.com. Sign up, I'll send you a bunch of free stuff, including a mix cheat sheet, which will help you right away. So that's hardcoremusicstudio.com. Grab the cheat sheet, get on the email list, please subscribe, and feel free to watch some more videos here. All right guys, thanks, bye.